Hey everyone. Today I want to talk about something that was first like very intriguing to me when I was getting into, I guess, IT and computers and servers and stuff like that, right? So one of the most, I guess one of the biggest misunderstandings that I had, not really a misunderstanding, I just wasn't really sure of the full meaning was, what is like the cloud, right? When that was first introduced, I was fairly young, right? And the cloud was literally, was taught to us as like, oh, your data is up in the cloud. Like, you think a cloud in the sky, you don't know where it is. Well, there's some truth to that, right? But it's not actually like a physical cloud in the sky. I know when I was really little, that's what I thought it was because that's how it was explained to me. And you think I'm stupid for thinking that, but hey, I was like a teenager, wasn't really that technically versed, right? But essentially the cloud, right? It's very well widely used in technology today. For example, there's a lot of big cloud providers, Google, AWS, Azure, like VMware, stuff like that, right? There's all these different cloud providers, and for some of you who are like newer to tech or just getting into like IT stuff or whatever, right? You might be confused. What really is the cloud? What does that mean? Well, really, if you think about it, the cloud in short terms is just someone else's computer that you're using to host something, and they take care of like the power connectivity, the cooling, and the actual maintenance of the hardware. That's all it is. It's just someone else's computer. It's like if you guys were to buy like a service through me and I hosted something here in the background and you accessed it yourself, that would basically be like you using my cloud to do something. Now, there's different variations of this, and it can be hosted different ways, but it's essentially at the end of the day, the cloud is someone else's computer. Now, there are some positives to doing this. Like, for example, right? If you're a smaller company and you don't have really the budget for an IT staff and you're trying to host like a website and you don't have like the infrastructure or the money to have like actual servers and like hosting and do all the network security and stuff like that properly, excuse me. It might be better for smaller companies like that to just do something in the cloud, right? Have it be cloud hosted. That way the responsibility is on them. It's on the cloud company, to keep the uptime going, have proper maintenance for the servers, have more proper security for the cloud, right? So it makes more sense. There's some really valid use cases for it. It makes things easier for people. They're not that technically intrigued by it, and they don't want to self-host, like a lot of people do, because self-hosting is a lot of work too. You got to have the hardware, you got to cool it properly, maintain it yourself, make sure the uptime is good if you got a lot of customers, and also, that too, you got to keep the security aspect of it, right? Because if something happens and you don't have that segmented properly, or it gets into your own network, that's not good. So there's some very valid use cases for using the cloud. I know it's always good to basically to have cloud backups, especially with back in the day, or not back in the day, I guess this is still present day, when you have like backing up data to like hard drives and stuff on site, which is good, but you got to think what happens if something the site burns down, right? Your office building, right? It's good to have backups in the cloud. That way they're all probably oftentimes redundant. They're spread across different cloud data centers across the US. That's always good too. Basically, the cloud can allow for more backup options, redundancy, and it's like an extra fail-safe, if you will. Now, the one thing that does, one of the big major red flags, in my opinion, I mean, don't get me wrong, there's some very good use cases for the cloud. I have a cloud web server that I just use for like testing things. I don't have any personal information. It's just strictly like for conceptual things, right? Because you want to test stuff like in the cloud, as opposed to self-hosting all the time, just to get that actual feeling of it. But the big thing that I don't like is you don't know, like, unless it's some very transparent, no BS type of thing, right? You don't know what that cloud provider is doing in the background with all your data. They could be looking at it, they could be inspecting all the traffic. They basically have root access to your web page. They can see what you're doing, or not web page, your server. They can see what you're doing, right? So you don't know what they're doing. Number one, it's literally someone else's computer. And in my book, that's kind of a red flag. That's why I don't prefer it. But for just testing stuff, I have a very small instance. That's like some free thing that I have with a bogus account, whatever, right? So there's that. Then also too, there's usually often a cost, and the cost is not cheap if you want to have something like cloud hosted. Especially if you're trying to do something through AWS, you need a lot of data, and it needs to be up all the time, and you're using their own like Linux, I think, deployments. They have AWS Linux, but you can use like Red Hat, all that kind of stuff as well, right? So there's a lot of costs associated with it, but at the end of the day, it really is someone else's computer. You don't know what they're doing unless you really comb through the terms of service, and even then, it might be hard to say what they're doing with your data. Now, there is that, but at the end of the day, what it comes down to is your use cases, right? If you're a smaller company trying to get started and you don't have the infrastructure to host servers and keep all that up, that's fine. Go for it, go ahead. That's your decision. But if you're someone that is more tech conscious and you're like, oh, maybe I can do this, maybe you might want to set up your own, because literally, like I've said multiple times in this video, at the end of the day, you don't know what's going on behind the scenes, because again, it's someone else's computer that is really ultimately hosting or storing your data slash software. But yeah, that's really all I had to say. I kind of want to talk about what is the cloud, benefits, use cases. But at the end of the day, like I've said, the cloud, it really just is someone else's computer. But yeah, if you guys enjoyed this video, let me know what you think down below, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.